Hello, everyone, and welcome to Saunders on Security, brought to you by Corinium Global Intelligence, the podcast for busy CISOs talking about everything security. And I'm very excited to have with me today Craig Pedersen. Craig is from TCG Forensics, and we're going to be talking a bit about segregation of duty today. Craig, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What got you into this space? What's your passion? What makes you tick?
Ross, hi. Thanks so much for having me on the show. As you know, a regular fan of the show, so I'm really keen to be here. Okay, where do we start? By trade, I'm a certified fraud examiner, and I'm also a certified cybercrime investigator. And I work within TCG Digital Forensics, which pretty much, as the name says, we do digital forensics. So a lot of our day-to-day work is the investigation of cybercrime, the investigation of commercial crime, the investigation of commercial crime where there are digital artifacts that need to be put back together in order to understand the crime as a whole, as a mechanism, and of course to create the evidence that's needed to build a case and take it to prosecution at court if need be. And in a nutshell, apart from losing much of my hair in the process, that's me and pretty much what I do.
Okay. I know that you and I actually met when I attended one of your courses on that. And I'd been through some similar stuff with forensics required at some point. Cool. So, Craig, as I've mentioned, we're going to go into segregation of duties today. And, you know, it's something we hear about, and we perhaps hear internal audit screaming about SOD and things like that. What exactly is segregation of duties, and why is it so important for an organization?
Ross, it's basically the foundation, one of the core building blocks of your anti-fraud program and how you prevent fraud within any organization. Conventionally, there are different theories of fraud, what causes fraud, what pushes people to commit fraud, and what are those motivators. Now, within that, a key element of it is opportunity, as with any other crime. And the opportunity is often created by one person holding too much responsibility. So for example, in let's say an SME environment, you have Jane in accounts, and Jane receives invoices in. Jane checks that it's the correct amount that's due, and she processes for payment. She also is the same person who does the payment. Now, this is a problem because if Jane is under financial pressure for a medical emergency or whatever the circumstances may be, it's just too easy for her to perpetrate a fraud without anybody picking up on that for quite some time. The bigger the organization and the more complex the staff complement, the easier that it can fly under the radar and not be noticed. Now, segregation of duties is about taking the core functions, again, let's look at procurement, and ensuring that the person who signs off and checks an invoice is not the same person who approves the invoice and is not the same person who processes the payment. So the three would have to operate in concert in order to perpetrate a fraud. No one of them could do it on their own.
Yes, I think you see a lot of that as well in like the banking side, and two people having to release payments and things like that. So it's starting to play into that kind of space there.
Absolutely. You know, bearing in mind my age, if I go back in years to the days where we still walked into a bank and you had a teller. If you walked into the teller and you showed her a salary check, they would be able to clear it for you immediately. But the teller could never clear it. They would have to get a supervisor to come and countersign the check in order to clear it into your account immediately. Now, that's a basic, fundamental fraud prevention method. By the same token, if you go to any supermarket and you stand in a queue, you have your items rung up, and accidentally the cashier rings up two items, or you decide to return an item. You have a bottle of water in your hand and you decide, I don't want it anymore, please just take it off of that cash up. The cashier can't do it themselves. They have to get a supervisor to come and log onto their till quickly and remove that transaction. Were they able to process that removal themselves, they would be in a position where they could commit fraud because they could make that decision on their own and adjust their cash up at the end of the day. So that is a typical segregation of duty. And it's visible in pretty much every business we deal with, but we sometimes forget to check that we have that same functionality in our own businesses because we inherently want to trust the people that we work with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the trust thing comes in so big, and you do trust the people that you work with, and you don't think that someone's ever going to do this kind of stuff, but it does happen out there. What are some of the sort of risk factors that you see? So there's the financial transaction. Are there other sort of risk factors around this and around the fraud from it?
Oh yes, absolutely. You know, there's quite a wide variety of areas in which fraud can take place, and cash handling and the payments of accounts are not the only two by any extreme. Within any organization, you've got stock that's being delivered. Is the person who's taking delivery of the stock the same person who's signing to accept that invoice from the supplier? Because the two parties, the delivery driver and your warehouse person, could collude to over-deliver, under-deliver, over-invoice, or under-invoice according to stock holding. And you're not going to find it out until stock take. And many companies still only do an annual stock take. So the actual warehouse is also one element where it can happen. And then you have supply-side relationships. A member of staff, for example, comes along and the company bakkie is rattling and shaking again, as it always does. It needs to go down the road to High Q and have the alignment done. Instead of taking it directly to High Q, he takes it to High Q, he buys lunch, and he buys lunch for the guy in the workshop, and that's added to the value because he alone is going to High Q to get the quote, approve the quote, and have the work done. What should happen is somebody from the office should phone ahead, liaise and get the quote, then send somebody just to get the work done, check the work's done correctly, and obviously sign and approve the payment. So that supplier relationship is also susceptible to fraud. In bigger organizations, one of the most trusted positions that you can have is that of a buyer, because they're hagglers by nature.
Yeah, I was just going to go into this one.
Deal. And you put them in a position of a lot of responsibility where they're going face to face with the supplier to haggle trade terms. If there's anything going to go wrong in that relationship and there's going to be a sideline transaction or a kickback, basically, that's where it's going to happen. So it's very important to ensure that the person who's writing the contract with the supplier and signing off the contract and doing the due diligence on the vendor is actually not the buyer. It needs to be different people, totally apart from each other, in order to make sure that there's a check and a balance and a cross-check of everybody's work to pick up if there are any problems in that circle.
That's a very, very good point. And, you know, I'm thinking about it now. This could tie into things like car rentals and something as simple as even, I suppose, groceries to a degree if someone's purchasing on that level. Sure. So, I mean, you talk about warehousing, you've spoken about that side and purchasing and having buyers and stuff. With segregation of duties, is it something that we can see in a smaller company? You mentioned SMEs earlier. Is it something we see in small companies a lot, or is this sort of a luxury for larger enterprises? How do you see it playing out in the different spaces?
Well, it's scalable. There's a scale to it according to the size of the organization. And if you look at an organization that's got 300 or 400 staff, it's pretty easy to segregate duties according to different functions, different departments, and to split it up and have self-checking mechanisms. But you raise a very good point. What do you do where you're in the SME environment and you have 5 staff? It's very difficult to segregate those duties without becoming onerous and making people do double work. But there are still certain things that can be done. And within that micro enterprise node, one of the dynamics that's really prevalent in South Africa is an abrogation of responsibility. Now, this grows out of the entrepreneurial flair, where John is a really good mechanic. He loves working on cars. He's passionate about what he does. So one day he kicks up and he opens his own business. And 6 months later, his passion for cars and the way he communicates with people and the pride he takes in his work, well, it's infectious, and the customers are drawn to him. And he now needs somebody else to work in the business with him, and the business grows. Fast forward a year, and like many businessmen, John's now grown into a position where he hasn't touched a spanner in 6 weeks, but he's got a lot of paperwork to do for SARS. He's got UIF to file. He's got debtors and creditors to do, and he's monitoring stock on flow, and it starts to snowball. So John hires Susan, who's now going to do the administration. And John, unfortunately, forgets that at the end of the day, yes, he's a good mechanic, but his primary responsibility is the business owner. And he abrogates the duties and says, right, Susan, it's not my problem, it's your problem, you do it. That's all good and well until things don't really work anymore. And John no longer understands the systems that Susan has put in place to manage the business. And this is a really common small business dynamic in South Africa. And before you know it, there's money missing, and John can't understand where it's gone, because he's quite happily put that work onto her so that he can go back to doing what he loves rather than what he's obliged to do. And the key to it is simplifying things down a little bit. Saying, yes, Susan can load the payments, but she will print them and bring them to me. I will approve them. If they're not approved in writing, they're not going to happen. A classic example of this that we see every day in South Africa within cybercrime, and it is still a form of fraud, is invoice interception, where party A raises a valid invoice, they send the invoice to party B, and somehow you've got somebody, of course, in the middle who's now changed the banking details on their account. And the person in accounts with the best of intentions and a little bit of telephonic pressure from some social engineering, got to get this payment through. They log on, they change the details. The person who does your payments in a small enterprise would never, ever, 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 ever have the ability to change account details at all. That needs to be a second person, so you've got two sets of eyes reviewing it and saying, hey, wait a minute, why am I doing a business payment to Capitec account? Because Capitec don't do business accounts. Have you phoned Joe to confirm that these are his new banking details? Did you phone Joe off of the number we normally have for him and not the number that's on this email? Are those checks and balances in place? And sometimes just having that set of eyes is enough to actually stop it in its tracks and save you a hang of a lot of money and aggravation in the process.
You're making me think of incidents that I've seen along the way now that segregation of duty could have removed out of the equation, basically. You talk about that invoice fraud. I've seen it where salespeople have changed invoicing details, and it's again comes back to that sort of trust thing. You know, they would never do that. Why would they do that? Of course, we'll change it. But I mean, I'm also thinking of instances where I've seen business email compromise now, where someone has communicated via email, oh, it's the CFO, you know what, my banking details have changed. Please put my salary in this new account that I've suddenly opened. And I think that this would be something that would resolve something like that, surely.
But Ross, that's actually spot on. In fact, that very example that you used there, a couple of years ago, I found myself being guilty of the same thing. With the travel schedule and being all over the place and being out on site and working with people, I'm not always near a computer to do a transfer. And I found it was actually quite normal for me to send our accountant a quick email to say, away for a couple of days, pay this. And it wouldn't be hard to replicate the language either, because it's kind of short and abrupt. And the accountant, she's so used to receiving those instructions from me. If somebody slipped in that channel, she probably wouldn't notice. So in that case, what I had to do is go back to her and say, okay, I will never, ever send you an email instruction to do a payment for me under pressure, ever. I will pick up the phone and ask you to do it. And if you get it from me in email form, you are not to act on it at all.
Yeah,
No matter where
that's
in
a
the
very
world I
good
am,
plan.
I will pick up the phone and do it. Because like any other business, as you said, business email compromise. Straight up BUC, get in the middle, change the banking details, the business loses 100,000 Rand. And the investigative chain, even if you've got the best of methodologies and the best of things to work with, the subpoena process takes quite a time to get to the account, and then the account money is sent onto and to follow the channel. So you're not getting that money back to your account realistically for a couple of months, if at all, obviously. But optimistically, that money is out of circulation a couple of months.
Yeah.
Now, that can cripple a business completely. It can really, really kill your cash flow, because whatever money you lose is coming off of bottom line profit. So it's not just 100,000 Rand, whatever your service or your product is. If you're making a 25% margin, for example, well, you've got to sell 400,000 Rand plus worth of goods to recover that bit that you've lost. So the impact on the business is greater than we experience. A classic example we use is, ye old terrible example, of course, packet of cigarettes. In a retail environment, this sells for, let's work even numbers, 50 Rand, and is bought in for 40 Rand. So if somebody in the store steals one packet a day, how many cartons of cigarettes does that store need to sell in order to cover the loss? Well, it's 20% margin. So for every one packet that's stolen, they have to sell 5 to cover what was stolen. So if you having one packet stolen a day, that's 150 a month that have got to be sold just to cover the loss, not the lost profits. Wow. And the calculation can get quite complex from there. So if you're not careful and managing the segregation of duty correctly, the ripple effect is going to be, it's going to be absolutely deplorable on your bottom line profit.
That's so interesting. I mean, every time I speak to companies, it's kind of, you know, I try and stress that the costs that you see at the top of things, be it from a data privacy perspective, if it's a fine or if it's a breach issue, it's the recovery and the forensics or anything like that. It's not the only cost that you see going missing. You've got opportunity costs that could come in there. There are other parties that need to get involved where you have to spend money for forensics or something like that. It's you've got phenomenal costs across the board, and that I'd never even thought about this one as a cost, so I could just add that in too.
I'm going to make it even worse for you. Okay, I'm going to add the one hidden cost that the majority of people don't factor and don't see: the emotional cost.
Oh yes.
Okay. Now, the emotional cost in a small and medium-sized business is actually normally more than the intrinsic value of what they've lost. Because while the matter is still under investigation, while people are under suspicion, while you're making sure, is it business email compromise, is it internal theft, what has gone on here? During that whole process, it's consuming. And of course, you get tunnel vision. And there's an opportunity cost. You've lost opportunity. Your focus is not on the key metrics of the business. You're affecting morale. You're having sleepless nights. And your focus is not where it's supposed to be. And the overall cost of that shift in focus, a lot of businesses struggle to actually recover from that. Even after they've recovered from the financial loss, it's the distraction and the lost opportunity and the morale within the business that has suffered. And that is incalculable. It can really be a monster.
That's a really good point. I dealt with an incident a number of years back where it was basically just I say just is a bit of a misnomer here, but it was an eavesdropping kind of thing where there was monitoring in the office without people being aware. And just that, I mean, that it wrecked morale, and it wrecks the folks in the exco that are trying to deal with it at that level. That rubs off on the rest of the people too. And there's a vibe, like we talk about a vibe going on in an office. You literally get that, and it is, as you say, it's all consuming when it's happening because it is so serious when it happens.
Well, I've actually seen it double before, because You know how the whole business email compromise works, and the syndicates that work in it as well. And one of the favorite tricks is double dipping, because they've just taken you for an invoice now, but they've invested a lot of time and money and energy in what they've done. They're not just going to walk away. They're going to stick around, and they might give it a week or two, and then they're going to try again. And that's when they go for a big number, because they catch you at your weakest. Because everybody in the office is kind of walking around on eggshells, because there's money missing, there's fraud, is it in the computers, is it in the staff, what's going on here, who's responsible, are we responsible, is the client responsible? And everybody's so on edge that if you add in a little bit of social engineering and perceived pressure, and you bark at people on the phone, because I need this invoice paid now, why is it not paid, my business is going under, what are you trying to do to me, you're trying to wreck me, are you guys even legitimate, what's going on here? And you can really hammer the accounting staff, and that additional pressure, they crumble and they break process again, and they hit you a second time.
Yeah, geez. So, because I mean, that would play on the fact that, oh, we don't want another incident happening. We don't need one more thing happening. Let's just sort this out quickly. That's such a good point. So, getting back to segregation of duty and all of that, we talk about there being policy and there being rules and things like that. And, we can put in segregation of duty and say, well, person A or person B needs to validate something. How does one audit segregation of duty? How does one validate that it's actually working and taking place?
Like everything, and at the risk of being cheesy and corny, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. There's no way. So it kind of starts before you can segregate duties, you actually have to have written job specifications so that everybody understands what is their functions and what are their performance indicators. Once you've done that, and each person has got a written job description, then you can attach a responsibility to it, and you can see immediately as you write them up, wait a minute, there's too much responsibility on this person in this line. Yeah, I need to divvy that up. And it's very much a sit behind a computer and work it out kind of exercise, engage with the staff a bit to understand more about how things are being done. Self-checking mechanisms are always the best. So you can build a simple mechanism into it whereby 8 o'clock every morning, person A will get the purchase orders for the day in printed form, old school, so that they can double check them and check them against what's supposed to be paid. And they can check that the margins that are being applied are correct, and that the client is a known client. If it's a new client, they know to be a bit more ready. Now, if that person gets in at 8 o'clock in the morning and that pile of documents isn't ready for them, what are they going to do? Well, they're going to go to that person who's responsible for giving them the documents and check why not. They are then giving those documents when they're ready for payment to a third party who's going to load the payments, and possibly another one to release them if it's if it's slightly different. When it comes to changing of banking details, 2 people must agree on the changing of the banking details. The one person can correspond with the client via email. The second person has to correspond with the client telephonically.
Yes, that is such a valuable thing.
Yeah, how often do your suppliers and your clients change their banking details?
Very
if
infrequently.
If you're a small organization, it's actually not that often.
Yeah.
And it's nothing. It's 50 cents to pick up the phone to the number that you have for them and you're used to communicating with them, and to verify that. I have seen it go to extremes as well, where within my own company, for example, our accounts person has a filtered mailbox. No Gmail gets through, no Hotmail gets through, no Yahoo Mail gets through. I don't care. If I'm paying money to somebody, you need to care enough about your business to spend money on your email. Free doesn't cut it. Unfortunate for some of the smaller guys. And even there, if I have to turn around and say, look, I'll pay the 200 Rand for you to go buy a domain and have real email. I'd rather pay the 200 Rand than run the risk of losing money to an email compromise. And you break up your duties of who's responsible for verification of the client details, who keeps the client master list, We've all seen it within a within a client engagement model, where you walk into the client and say, right, where's your client telephone list? And they'll haul out a spreadsheet and say, okay, if I go to John in sales, is his the same as your? Oh. And within the office, you've got sort of 3 or 4 customer lists, and everybody's got different details because they deal with something. Okay, wait, this is going to be a recipe for disaster. It's not segregated. There's nobody responsible for that master list. And that's where you can stop a lot of the scammers and fraud in its tracks, by breaking up those duties, by double checking account details and having 2 separate people verify them all the time. And again, at its foundation, if I don't know what each staff member's duties are, how am I going to segregate it? Because I don't know what they do.
Very, very valid point. And I mean, you speak to, just talking there, like I asked earlier, with this going to a small business, but I mean, you can have a master list, and that is, I would say, a good first step for this, because I mean, I'm thinking about my business now. Like, I actually do have a master list, and I'm basically one person, but there's a single point of reference for it. I don't have to go fishing for it. And even on my own, I don't want to fish for information within the business. That's probably a terrible terminology to use for this, or maybe a very valid one, using a fish terminology.
Fishing yourself, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's fantastic. And you've already brought us around to, okay, this is what it is. This is how it can be implemented and how it can be validated. Because I think at the end of the day, you need to validate that this kind of thing is happening. Craig, as we're going through to sort of giving us a bit of a wrap today, and you know, thank you for being here. I have one question that I ask pretty much every guest that's on here, and I'm very curious for your input on this, because I don't think I've had the same answer twice yet. What would you say if you had to give a chief information security officer or someone heading up the information space in a business, if you had to give them one quick win that would be like your top win in an organization, what would it be?
One. I think the top win in terms of takeaway, and what people could take away from today's session, is quite simple. You've got to know what your staff do, down to the finest detail. You need to know what is their job, what do they do, what are they responsible for, and who double checks it. If you don't know that hierarchy within your own business, and you're unfortunately one of those people who have abrogated and said, look, they can deal with it, I don't want to know, you're going to have a problem. Know each staff member, what do they do, what are they responsible for, what are they accountable for, and who double checks who. If you just take that away, you're going to be in a much richer position in terms of fraud prevention overall.
I think you mentioned such a valid thing there, and it's something that I was wondering if you were going to say, and you did, and that responsibility and accountability. I think people make a mistake that they say that those two are the same thing, and they actually are. There's different meanings to them, and I think it's very important to know who's responsible, but who's accountable as well. Craig, thank you so much for being on and chatting to us today. If someone wants to get hold of you, chat a bit more about what you do, the forensic side of things, segregation of duties, how do they go about getting hold of you?
In a normal given business day, probably with great difficulty, I must admit. I think the easiest way to reach out is always over LinkedIn. It's one platform I do monitor quite closely. I only use it for business. There's no sort of social interaction on it. And it's quick and easy for me to access the emails and everything else on a day-to-day basis. But LinkedIn, easiest way to stay in touch, keep up with the odd posts and what's happening in and around fraud and cybercrime. Pop me a question. Just by all means, look me up. I'm on LinkedIn. Unfortunately, I'm pretty ugly, hard to forget. So yeah, please hit me up with an ad and let's get in touch and let's try and reduce fraud together.
Fantastic. Thanks, Craig. And folk, that's Craig Pedersen, Pedersen. And you also have a book out, if I recall correctly. And I know I recall correctly because it's sitting on my shelf up here. Can you give us a quick breakdown on that book?
Yes, I do. It's actually been out just over a year now. That's the Investigator's Guide to Open Source Intelligence. And It's a beginner's guide for conventional investigators on how to use the internet as a tool to find the information that you don't realize is there. I think it's kind of common knowledge these days, or it's widely accepted, that the www, the World Wide Web, is only a fraction of the information that's out there, that's accessible. And we use it extensively as a fraud prevention methodology for investigating after the fact, but also for online due diligence. Am I looking at the right person? Is this really their phone number? And is this company legit? And that book is packed with, I think, about 110 or 112 different tools that are basically all free tools. And with the right methodology and the right tool, you should be able to find pretty much anything on anyone and validate the businesses and the people that you're dealing with in terms of reputational management, and finding out a little bit more what they're about before engaging with them. So packed with lots of interesting tools, as you know, and it's a deeper insight into what information is actually stored on the internet and how can you access it and use it in an investigation. It is available, lest I forget, got to get a punt in. It is available on Takealot as well. Investigator's Guide to Open Source Intelligence. Get the link off of my LinkedIn profile or have a look on Takealot and you'll find it there. Cape Town and Joburg for easy delivery.
Fantastic. And I think it's a very good read for anyone who is doing due diligence. I know I've done that before with what you have in the book. It was a good read, and then I got to use it as well. So Craig, thank you very, very much. And, you know, thanks to our listeners for being there. And I hope you got some value out of this. Please reach out if you have any questions from this, and we will see you next time. Craig, thanks so much.
Thanks, Ross. Been great being here. Chat to you soon.
Cheers.